All right, let's talk about something that's probably keeping a lot of you IT up at night, mastering application access. I mean, in a world with what feels like a million cloud apps, how do you even begin to manage who gets the keys to the kingdom without it turning into a total security nightmare? Forget just clicking through menus. We're going to build a real strategy from the ground up.
This is the core question, isn't it? If you get this wrong, you're looking at potential data breaches, compliance failures, the works. But if you get it right, you unlock productivity and you secure your company's most important digital assets. So, how do we wrangle this tangled mess and turn it into a clear, manageable system of control?
Well, the answer isn't just more work or more clicks. It's about a smarter, multi-layered approach. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to construct that strategy piece by piece and build an airtight system for your app access.
So where does this whole mess even begin? Well, it's the app explosion, right? Marketing has their stack of tools, finance has theirs, engineering, they've probably got a dozen new ones this week. Trying to manually keep track of who needs what is more than just a headache. It's basically a recipe for security gaps and complete operational chaos.
Okay, so let's build this strategy from the ground up. Our first layer of control is the most fundamental one. Who even gets in the front door? You can think of this as the security guard at the main gate. Their job is super simple. Check the list and decide who is allowed on the property in the first place. In our world, this is user assignment.
This is all about direct, explicit control. In a system like Microsoft Entra, for example, you're literally going to a specific application, let's say GitHub, and you're manually assigning a user, like Adele Vance. It's the most basic but also the most powerful statement you can make. Yes, Adele, you are allowed in here.
Okay, great. So Adele is in the building, we've secured the front door. But now what? What can she actually do now that she's inside? Getting past that front gate is just step one. I mean, you don't give every single employee a master key to every room in the building, right?
And that brings us to layer 2, permissions and consent. This is like the key card that gets you into the building, but it only works on specific floors or for certain rooms. We're no longer just asking who gets in, we're asking what are the applications they use allowed to do for them.
And this is where things get really, really important. You have two main types of consent. On one side, you have user consent. That's just an individual person, allowing an app to access their own stuff. But on the other side, you have admin consent. This is where an administrator gives an app the keys to the entire organization's data. The difference in scope there is just massive.
And because that power is so huge, Microsoft's own guidance on this is crystal clear. They basically say, hey, carefully review the permissions before you even think about granting consent. This isn't just some checkbox you tick off. It's a huge strategic decision with major security implications.
Yeah, granting this level of consent is a pretty big deal. It's reserved for someone with a global administrator role for a reason. But you really have to look closely at that warning. When you grant new tenant-wide permissions, it completely wipes out any permissions that were there before. It is a total reset, so you have to be 100% sure you've got it right.
Okay, so we've got a handle on who gets in and what they can do. But here's the problem. This manual approach completely falls apart at scale. When you've got hundreds of apps, assigning access one by one is, well, it's impossible. And this brings us to layer 3, building a system for governance.
And this is the reality for most companies today. We're talking 500+ enterprise apps. The manual approach doesn't just slow you down. It actually creates massive security holes because permissions get missed, or they're forgotten, or just misconfigured. We need a way to govern all this at scale.
So, the solution is to stop thinking about individual apps and start thinking in collections or bundles. That's the whole idea behind an entitlement catalog. It's just a container where you group all the resources a specific team needs. So, for example, a marketing catalog can hold all their apps, their SharePoint sites, and their groups, all in one neat, manageable package.
And building one is pretty straightforward. You create a catalog, you add the resources, and then, and this is the real game changer, you assign owners. By making someone like Adele Vance the owner of that marketing catalog, you're delegating control to the people who actually know the business needs the best. Suddenly, central IT isn't the bottleneck for everything.
Okay, so we've built a pretty slick system for granting access efficiently, but what about the other side of that coin? What about taking it away? People change roles, projects end, guests leave. If you don't have a cleanup process, you get what's called permission creep, this slow, dangerous buildup of unnecessary access.
And the answer to that permission creep is automation. Access reviews basically act as your scheduled cleanup crew.
You can set them up to periodically ask a really simple but critical question. Does this person still need access to this thing?
The key is to make these reviews smart. First, you've got to scope them intelligently. Don't try to review everything all at once. Pick a high-risk area, like guest users. Second, delegate the review to the group owners who have the right context. And most importantly, automate the consequence. If nobody responds to a review, the system should default to safety and automatically remove the access. No questions asked.
Whew, we have gone all the way from a single user to an entire enterprise-wide governance system. So now, let's tie it all together into one powerful, cohesive strategy.
And here it is, the pyramid of app access control. It's actually pretty simple when you see it all laid out like this, right? The foundation, the base of everything, is assign, controlling who gets in. The middle layer is consent. That's the gatekeeper controlling what those apps can do. And at the very top, you have govern, the system of catalogs and reviews that lets you manage it all securely and at scale.
You see, this framework is the real difference between just reacting to problems as they pop up and actually preventing them from happening in the first place. You move from just clicking buttons in a crisis to having a proactive governance strategy that manages risk for your entire organization.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. Take a hard look at your own environment. Are you operating with a clear, layered strategy like this one? Or are you just stuck in a reactive cycle of clicks and fixes? Because adopting this kind of framework, that can make all the difference in the world.
Section of lab will go through implement access management for apps. Like organization records that only specific users or groups have access to enterprise applications. So we must assign a user to specific applications. First exercise is configure an enterprise apps, where first task is add an app to your Microsoft Entra tenant. Then task 2 is assign users to an app. So let's start the lab. Here I have already connected to Azure portal and also in Microsoft Entra tenant. So under Entra tenant, check that enterprise apps, click on that enterprise apps option. Now here select that new application. And here you can search for GitHub. Now you can see that there are like 14 results. We are going to select that GitHub Enterprise Cloud. So Enterprise Managed User, GitHub Enterprise Server, GitHub Enterprise Cloud Organization, and there is option like GitHub Enterprise Cloud Enterprise Account. So for our lab we need to select this one. So select that, and you can settings, you can see that one like publisher is in GitHub, provisioning for the URL, and sign on, different options available. You can see also logo underneath. You can see the general security, compliance, and also legal. So now click on create button. It is redirected to the GitHub Enterprise Cloud Enterprise account page. So now here you can see that assign users and groups under assign users and groups section. So click that option. And here you can see that add users and groups. Click that option here. And you can see under users and groups none selected. So select that option. And here we are searching for Adele events, which is already in front, so you can just select that one. And we are going to add also our admin account. So two users are selected. Then click on select button. And after that, select assign option. So application assignment succeeded. So this lab is mainly this task, and we have successfully completed uh, this lab. If you have any question, please add that into comment section. Otherwise, see you into next lab. Section of lab, we'll go through grant tenant-wide admin consent to an applications. For applications your organization has developed, or for those that are registered directly in your Microsoft Entertainment, you can grant tenant-wide admin consent for app registration in the Azure portal. It has got first exercise admin consent. So task 1 is grant admin consent in app registration. And that is the task. And task 2 is grant admin consent in enterprise apps. So let's start the lab now. So here I have into logging into Azure Entra. So there, first look go to find out the app registrations that we have been created in our previous lab. So select that app registrations and all applications. And let's find out that the demo app that, so select that one. And we need to collect some information for this lab. So let's add that information. Very first one is we need this client ID. And directory tenant ID. So before this lab, you need to make sure that you completed previous lab where we created this demo app. So now here under manage section, select that API permission option. And here you can see the admin consent required column shows the default value for an organization. So here you can see the learn more. So select that hyperlink. And then you can get more information about this one, this feature. So let's go back. Now here you can see that option add a permission and grant admin consent for Contoso. So select that grant admin consent and you can see the information or dialog box. Do you want to grant consent for the requested permission for all Contoso, all accounts in Contoso? Select yes. So grant consent successful. Just make sure that when we are giving this tenant-wide admin consent to app registration, ultimately this will revoke any permissions that had previously been granted tenant-wide. So the permissions previously granted by users on their own behalf will not be affected. So in our next task, we will grant admin consent in enterprise apps. Now to grant tenant-wide admin consent through enterprise applications, let's go back to my Microsoft Entra Admin Center and select that enterprise apps. And then under security, select that consent and permissions option. And here you see them different like manage options on left side. Select that admin consent settings. So admin consent request, users can request admin consent to apps they are unable to consent to. There are different options also who can review admin consent request. You can add users, groups or roles. So let me select that yes. Then you can see that there's options like a reviewer type. So users level, group level or roles level. So let me select that users, reviewers. Select the admin user for our lab perspective. Select that, select, and then click save button. So admin consent setting is successfully saved. So we have completed lab 21 also. Just to make sure that when you do or follow this lab, uh, always make sure that the options or can moved from here and there, so you may not get the right option. So what is in document, so you may need to move here and there to find out the options where that move or under which category it has been moved. So that's all for this lab. If you have any questions, add that into comment section. Otherwise, see you into next lab. Hey everyone, in this lab, we'll go through lab on create and manage a catalog. Create and manage a catalog of resources in Microsoft Entra Entitlement management. So first exercise is in building out resources in entitlement management. Task underneath that is create a catalog. Then add a resource to that catalog. Then add additional catalog owner. Then edit catalog. After that, create access reviews for guest users. Then delete a catalog. So let's start the lab. So here I have already connected to Azure Intra, and let's find out the options for identity governance. So that is here, ID governance. And here the options is like menu, that entitlement management, select that one. Then under catalogs, you can see that catalogs option, click that option or click that menu. Then click on new catalog. Now give a catalog name with description. And you can see that enabled for users to request, click yes, enable to okay. So enable for users to request, and another option is enable for external users to request. So enable for external users request is no, but for user request is select yes. So this settings allows users in selected external directories to be able to request access package in this catalog. Then click on create button. So you can see that catalog created successfully. Now next we are going to add a resource to a catalog. So for that, under catalogs, you can see that there are marketing and general. So select that marketing. And then under manage option, you can see that resources option. So select that resources. And here click on add resources. So add resources page, you can see the different options available. So resource descriptions, type and subs. Here groups and teams. We're going to select a retail group. So we can select retail, select, then under application, search for box option. We can see first. So select that box option and select. We're going to select another applications, which is Salesforce. Select, and then select the option for SharePoint sites. Search for brand. Select that brand, SharePoint sites, and then select. Now select add button. So now when you do this one, ultimately these resources can now be included in access packages underneath that catalog. The next task, we are going to add additional catalog owner. So for that, we are in marketing sections. Here you can see that roles and administrators. So select that menu, roles and administrators. In here you can see that options, add catalog owner. Select that add catalog owner. Then you can see that members option. So for this one, we're going to select Adele Vance. And then select. So now Adele Vance is added to catalog owner. Next task, we're going to edit a catalog. Now to edit a catalog, you go to, like, for example, a marketing catalog area, then go to overview section, and you can see that there's an option called edit. Select that edit option. And if you see the properties, so for example, here you can see that enable digest right now. If you would like to disable, then we can just put that no. And similar way that if we put enable yes, like for external user, if we want, we can set that yes. So that's the way you can edit a catalog, and after that select on save button. So catalog updated successfully. So next task, we are going to create a access review for guest users. So for that, go back to the main section of Microsoft Entra Admin Center, and under ID governance, you can see the option access review. Select that option. And then click on new access review to create your guest user access review. So now here you can see the options is available. Choose an access review template. So review access to a resource type and review user access across multiple resource type within the catalog. So this is a new page. Actually, this is new. They have changed this option. So if I select that, let's see the details. So here you can select what to review and select teams plus groups, and then review scope. Select the all Microsoft 365 groups with guest users, and then you see that so review scope is that one, and under groups select groups to exclude. So if you want, you can select also other groups that you don't want to give permissions. So cancel for now that option, and then scope is guest users only. Then click on next reviews. In the next turn, you can select reviewers, select group owners as the reviewers. And one thing just to make sure that guest users should not be allowed to review their own access as a good identity governance practice wise. And you can see that after that there is an option like specify recurrence of reviews. So default is 3 days. So we can select the days that we want, then review recurrence. So we can select weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. Let's put that monthly, and we can select the date to review from when, and you can also place the specific date like when that will be end. Let's give that. The next, click settings. So settings is configure the settings for how the review will take place and what happens when the guest user respond or does not respond. If reviewer don't respond, you can see the options like remove access. But there are other options available. No change, approve access. No, will not approve access. So just to make sure that we are getting response from them. And other options available. Now click on review plus create options, and you can go through the options selected and then click on create button. So new access review has been created. Let's refresh the page. So you can see that review options available. If you go there, you can delete series, you can modify reviewers, fallback reverse, settings, the update settings, and you can see that advanced settings options that you can main notification, reminders, or access review agents preview. And you can also collect that audit logs, also review history. So now we are going to do the very last task for this lab, which is delete a catalog. So for that, let's go back to catalog section. And you can see this catalog. So if you click that catalog, and when you are in overview tab, there is an option delete. So select that option, and then you see that there is a message. So this is the way. If you select yes, then it will be deleted. But because of our others lab, we still need this information, so we are not deleting. So selecting no options. So that's all for this lab. If you have any questions, add that into comment section. Otherwise, see you into next lab.